Welcome in, all new betting preview for this week's FedEx St. Jude Championship. I'm Rick Gaiman, that right there, Andy Lack. Andy, good day to you.
Good morning. Sorry, had a little tickle in my throat there. We're first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. We're down to 70 this week, which I think, in my opinion, made the Wyndham Championship a lot more exciting. I guess it remains to be seen whether the move from 125 to 70 makes this week more exciting. But we got a big one on our hands this week, one of the last big ones of the season.
Yeah, I was at least more compelled in Justin Thomas's attempt to get into the playoffs than I thought I was going to be. And maybe that's because it came down to literally the last shot that he took and he was kind of all over the place and it was a fun watch. But I think there's obviously ramifications that are running through guys that did not make the playoffs. I'm interested to see what the churn is going to be in terms of, Korn Ferry guys and guys who had their, so I think there's still a lot to kind of unravel when it comes to the first year of having 70 into the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think that some of the interesting, we'll say, I don't want to say anyone's unworthy of their spot in the field this week, but it really reminds you of some guys like a Matt Neesmith reels off 3 top 10s in the fall swing, pretty much does absolutely nothing this year whatsoever. And he finds himself into the playoffs. And of course, talking about next year's schedule is probably a whole different podcast that we won't cover a lot of ground on today. But that's going to change a lot next year going forward. So some of those guys that you look and you're like, haven't seen this guy on a leaderboard in 6 months, that maybe got a lot done during the fall swing. Shout out Taylor Montgomery, could remember him. But I think that it does actually throw more in the bucket of really putting into perspective how poor a season that a guy like Justin Thomas or Shane Lowry has had when you look at some of these guys that are in and you think, man, if this guy could have just notched like 2 or 3 more decent finishes at some point this season anywhere, they'd be playing here on their way to Memphis.
Yeah, the opposite situation of Neesmith and Montgomery is Lucas Glover, who does nothing all year long and then gets hot for a couple of weeks, including a victory, and gets himself into the playoffs. This board, the grid that we're looking at, is from OddsChecker. You can compare the odds across the industry, and we are back to a big 3, Andy. Scotty Scheffler, 6.5 to 1. Jon Rahm and Rory McIlroy both at 9. I'll also lump in Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele into this conversation as well, 16 and 18 to 1. But the top of the board, much different than it was last week and kind of much more reminiscent of the events that we've seen for the most part this year.
Yeah, for better or worse, I don't really have a ton of interest in the top 6. I really start to get myself going in the 25 to 45 range. I think you could make an argument that the top 3, at least, who we can talk about first. I mean, these are pretty similar to the numbers that these guys were going off at the majors. And this field is half the size of the major fields and doesn't feature a lot of the best players from LIV. So pretty objectively easy to identify that this is probably an easier event to win for Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, or Rory McIlroy than, maybe the Open Championship or US Open or PGA Championship. But, we still haven't had that week recently in a while. I guess Rory at Scottish, but we haven't had that wipe out the board Scotty Scheffler gains 2-3 strokes putting week. And I'm going to hope we can last for one more because I skipped right by them. What about yourself?
Yeah, I've made 2 bets so far this week. They're not here. I think if I was forced to, it is interesting. Scotty's got the quote problem with the putter. Rory around this place hasn't been particularly great. I think Rahm is the most interesting, but do I want to pull the trigger there? I haven't to this point. And to your argument, I haven't done it on Patrick Cantlay. I haven't done it on Xander Schauffele. The first bet I made was Colin Morikawa at 25 to 1.
Me too. Yeah. And I honestly, I know that it's so crazy for me to believe that it's been really since the Open Championship at St. George's, since he's won on the PGA Tour. I think he's got 1 DP World Tour title in there last December. But what's crazy about Morikawa is he's still remained a top 5 iron player in the world over the last 2 years. He hasn't really been able to find those spike putting weeks that kind of characterized his first couple wins on the PGA Tour and his majors. But I look at this golf course, and to me, it's very easy to sit here and say that every single golf course on the PGA Tour is a second shot golf course, but statistically, this course above many others really jumps to the top in the way that it favors approach play, specifically short to middle iron play. Like 75% of approach shots are coming from that 125 to 200 range. And for my money, Morikawa is still the best in the world at that specific skill set. So I think this is a great kind of get back on the horse, remind everybody who you are. There are some people, not myself, that wouldn't have him on the Ryder Cup team. And I think this is a pretty great opportunity to assert himself back as one of the best players in the world.
The stat profile is truly no different than when he was winning at a ridiculous clip. Win luck has not necessarily gone his way. We know the WD where he was 2 shots off the lead at the Memorial before the final round, didn't even play the final round. So who knows how that event shakes out. It's been a lot of, I think, bad win luck for him. And it's still a stat profile that is super investable. So I got it at 25 to 1. He's right there with Terrell Hatton, same price. And then you get down into Tommy Fleetwood's at 30, Ricky Fowler's at 33, Sam Burns and Wyndham Clark at 35 to 1. I've made another click here. How do you kind of assess the meaty part of this board?
Well, I'm on Hatton as well, who I think is probably maybe Cantlay and Xander, but Hatton statistically has been right there with those guys as the best player in the world without a win this season. I mean, Hatton has done literally everything that you're looking for. He's, by my numbers, one of the best Bermuda putters in this field over the past 2 years. This is the surface that I really prefer him on the most. He's always been an excellent iron player, but it's really the driving that has kind of made a shift for Hatton this year and kind of vaulted him into, for my money, one of the top 10 to 12 players in the world over a pretty long sample size. The guy's game strokes ball striking in 21 starts. I mean, he has been an absolute lock in terms of his ability to show up and hit the ball better than field average. And of the elite players, I probably trust his putter a lot more than I trust a lot of these other guys that we've already talked about and are kind of surrounding him on the odds board. So I'm in on Hatton. And then I'm still kind of making a decision. Maybe you can help me for this. I will admit that I'm a little bit of a sucker for Butch Harmon Las Vegas content, but I'm kind of circling my wagons around both Tommy Fleetwood and Jordan Spieth this week. Do you have a strong opinion on either of those?
So I think they just kind of got boxed out a little bit for me. Fleetwood, I think, is more interesting than Spieth is. Spieth has been okay this year. Fleetwood, I think, has been better. But I already made a click at Colin. I already made a click at Sam Burns, and I didn't have another bullet to fire at Tommy Fleetwood, though I am interested. I'm with Alex that it's Sam Burns week. You talk about guys who are Bermuda putters, the ability to hit second shots and putt well. When it goes good for Sam Burns, that's what you get. And he's a high upside guy, right? I think he's pretty risky. You get a large range of outcomes from Sam Burns, but this is, I've been hoping that he was going to round into form because I thought this was going to be a good spot for him for the last couple of weeks. And, I saw enough at Sedgefield to get me pretty excited about this.
Yeah. Hard not to like what we're seeing with Burns, particularly just one of the guys that still feels like in the betting market properly valued based on the amount that he wins, right? I mean, you're going to have to, it's kind of getting to a point with a guy like Xander and Cantlay where you start to wonder why those guys are still 14 and 16 and 18 to 1 when it's been over a year now since either of them has won. Whereas on the other hand, you have a guy like Sam Burns who hasn't even had by any means by his standards a great season.
For sure.
Still won the match play, and he's sitting there at 45 to 1. Which I think on this golf course is a pretty spectacular price for him. I would also throw, speaking of guys who don't win, Cameron Young into the mix for me. I do like the unquantifiable symmetry of what we saw from Zalatoris last year in terms of this being a sort of ideal spot for the best player in the world without a win to come to a track that favors ball striking, de-emphasizes putting far more than your average PGA Tour course, and finally break through, not quite in the pressure of a major setting, but still in a pretty elite field with a lot at stake. I'm not putting a ton of stock into what I saw from him in Minnesota, coming off a flight from England, and he's another guy like we mentioned with Morikawa, where he's right on that bubble, and he's on my team. I think I'm a lot higher on Cameron Young, I think, than consensus in terms of his talent, but he's got some serious work to do. I think that's why we saw him in Minnesota, and I think we're going to get his best effort this week.
The way I build my betting cards doesn't allow me to do this, but if I was just very, very casual in this and wanted to have, a couple bullets to be in the mix come Sunday, this is absolutely the area I'd live in, right? I mean, Morikawa, Hatton, Fowler, Burns, Wyndham Clark, Cam Young, all super interesting. I can't get to all of them, but this is, it feels like you're going to have a couple of sweats come out of this range.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to get your quick perspective on Tom Kim too. Was he ever hurt? Is he still hurt? He finished second at the Open Championship on a bum ankle. He goes on the Wyndham telecast on Saturday and is kind of wishy-washy about if he's even going to play this week. But we see him in the field, and it's not like he looked bad by any means at the Open Championship. Probably the best week of his career at the Open Championship. So where do we stand on Tom Kim? Because I think it's a really good course fit for him too.
Agreed. So my understanding is as follows. He was hurt. He injured himself on Monday or Tuesday of the Open Championship week. I think it was pretty serious in terms of, pretty sure like tore a ligament. Now he played through it and played well. I'm not a doctor, and I'm sure this is wrong, but it can't be worse now than it was that week, right? Like, wouldn't more rest, more time off? I don't know. I just don't know how it could be worse now than it was. I'm sure it could be. It could re-aggravate it, whatever. What I will say is I would rather have an outright bet on him than invest him in the DFS market, because if he is the one guy that WDs this week, on Thursday in a no-cut event, you're pretty screwed in a lot of those, counting stat situations.
Totally.
But if you have an outright, like it just like doesn't even matter anyway, right? It's first or nothing. So it doesn't matter what else he does. So I think I'm much more willing to fire here than I would be to like lock him in my core.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think 45, 50 to 1 is an adequate number for him. He's definitely in consideration for me in DraftKings. I haven't done a ton of perusing at ownership now. And you look at this range, and there are a lot of guys too that I've got some interest in terms of at least like my betting card gets pretty full quickly with the Morikawa, Hatton, Cameron Young, either Spieth or Fleetwood core. But, I was pretty shocked. I was surprised on Hideki last week because I was pretty high on him, admittedly. And it seemed like it was one or two holes maybe where he left a couple in the bunker that really ended his chances very quickly last week in Wyndham. This is a golf course that Hideki has lost in a playoff 2 years ago. You look at the ball striking still looks pretty great to me. So anytime you get a guy like Hideki in the 50 to 1 range now, that has my tentative attention. And gosh, you talk about Ryder Cup motivation too. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 50s on Finau by the end of the week either.
Yeah, I'm not super sold on Tony Finau. He's as short as 30, as long as 40 around the industry. I mean, where do we draw the line here on realistic guys who can win this golf tournament? I'm getting a Benny on at 66 to 1. Is that the line?
Sepp Straka can definitely win this golf tournament. I'm done ever doubting the septic take. I would probably draw the line with the Corey Connors, and JT Poston's playing unbelievable golf right now. I don't know if I see JT Poston. He's never he's never really won an event like this. Corey Connors, I probably have a little bit more confidence in terms of his ability to contend and find himself in the mix in a relevant way on Saturday or Sunday at this event. But yeah, the Corey Connors, Siwoo Kim's maybe is probably about the farthest I would go. Keegan, obviously, Keegan can win an event like this. I'm probably less excited about his course fit than I am with Siwoo and Connors, but probably that's as far as I would go.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to see where they fit in the finishing position market. That's like the 4-1, 5-1, top 10 range. Like I like Emiliano Grillo a lot this week. 5-1,
Yeah,
top
me too.
10 is kind of more interesting than him actually winning this golf tournament at whatever it is, 80-1, I think is what his number is right now. Any darts you want to throw here? I'm assuming any further would be kind of those top 10, top 20 markets. Maybe we can talk about some guys in the matchup market. But anybody from further down the board that you think can outperform their expectation?
Yeah, I like Keith Mitchell a lot this week. He's a guy who's had a tremendous amount of success on Bermuda. He's coming off a 5th place finish at the 3M Open. Total driving, I think, matters a lot at this golf course. He remains one of the best drivers of the ball in this field as well. Jaeger, too, just continues to play some outstanding golf. I have no reason to believe that Jaeger can't continue to top 20, top 15 at this golf course. Maybe it's a better conversation for DraftKings, but I think Jaeger's kind of live as ever to finish highly in this event. But those are the only 2 other names that I'd throw out there.
Let me see if I can find a Jaeger matchup because he has been so consistent and so good. First off, give me all the Emiliano Grillo over Lucas Glover the week after like the biggest win of his life. Who am I looking for? I'm looking for
shots fired to US Open at Bethpage.
Well, I mean, that feels like a different life ago, doesn't it? I mean, he's almost had like, I mean, it's shocking. I actually ran the numbers on this because it's hard to believe that Glover's been around for like 20 years, right? He's been flushing it for like 2 decades and has gotten way less out of the elite ball striking than he should have over the last 15 years. So I'm kind of, I don't know how much he's got left in the tank, but he's still a great ball striker. And maybe we can get a little bit of a second act here at this end of his career. But Jaeger is even money to Denny McCarthy, which they're like, sure. Yeah. Denny McCarthy, I'm like super concerned he's just lost it, right? Like, is this the most shockingly scary stat profile? A guy who loses 11 strokes ball striking at Royal Liverpool, which I was happy to forgive.
Yeah.
Bad course for him. First Open, no problem. Then you lose 6 at Sedgefield, and it's like, maybe he's actually lost it.
Yeah, I think that we can end the Denny Ryder Cup debate. I mean, I guess I wouldn't totally stick a fork in him if he somehow finds a way to top 5 this week. But like, I'd rather have Russell Henley on my Ryder Cup team than Denny McCarthy if we're going down that route. I'm with you. I'd take Jaeger over him in a matchup 10 times out of 10. I really like Jaeger this week, and I think he's a much safer bet to not flame out based on the ball striking baseline that Jaeger has compared to Denny, where you see with Denny, he's lost 16 strokes ball striking over the last 2 weeks. That's a bit of a cause for concern, I would say.
What's the state of the union on Matt Fitzpatrick? He's a dog to Fleetwood. He's a pretty big dog to Hatton. Not a lot of oxygen being spent in his direction. He's got low key some of the better course history around this place, 5th, 57th, 6th, and 4th. How do you assess what you've seen from Matty Fitzpatrick?
Hasn't been great. And I think this is why, and I talked about this on the podcast that I just put out, I'm a lot less high on the Euros than it seems the betting community is because of the recent play of guys like Matt Fitzpatrick, Justin Rose, Shane Lowry. I don't think Ludwig's the guy that many people think he is yet. So I think it's hard to look at a guy like Fitzpatrick right now and be incredibly encouraged by what we've seen. He's got that one top 10 since he won in a playoff over Spieth at the Heritage. Wasn't really the major season that we would have expected from a guy like Fitzpatrick. This was a player that coming off last year, I thought had a decent chance to assert himself as like a top 7 to 8 guy in the world. And I don't know if I'd have him maybe in my top 15 right now. So even as a dog to Fleetwood or Hatton, I'm pretty easily clicking on Fleetwood or Hatton in a matchup this week.
Okay, fair enough. We will continue this conversation. We'll talk some one and done. We'll answer some of these questions that have been piling up in the chat, and we'll chat about some more golfers. Let's hit it on the other side.
Andy Lack is one of the nerdiest golf guys that I know, and I mean that as an absolute compliment. His knowledge of course architecture allows him to create some of the most actionable course previews available, and he offers up pure expertise on his own podcast, the Inside Golf Podcast. Twice a week, he offers course breakdowns, DFS, and betting strategy for every PGA Tour event, and he expands the universe by bringing on entertaining and knowledgeable guests who can offer a different viewpoint of the game that we love. Follow Inside Golf Pod on Twitter and download Inside Golf wherever you download podcasts.
All right, Andy, let's run through a couple of these questions real quick. First Class Punter says, on a week where there is no cut, can you make a better argument for mega stars and mega chumps as even as low as the 6K guys, so this is DFS, are not donkeys, and you're guaranteed 4 rounds with them?
There's differing theories on this. I still think that this is a golf course that creates enough separation from tee to green that you could find yourself in some serious trouble if you start rolling out the Ben Griffins and Matt Neesmiths, and they're shooting 74s and 75s out there. So I don't know how much interest I have at the very, very bottom, but sure, there's some guys in my player pool in the mid 6K range.
Patrick says, I'm winning my one and done and still have Scheffler. Sick. Any advice on playing him this week or next week? I'm leaning towards next week. Kind of also depends who else you could play.
That's what I was going to say, Patrick. If you're still around, just throw out who else you have, because I like him a lot at Olympia Fields. So,
yeah, but if your other option for this week is like Taylor Montgomery, like we might need to chat about that. John Vickers, right. Last 3 tournaments for one and done. Burns, Hovland, Rahm in that order. I'm cool with that.
So Rahm is, yeah, I think you want to save. There's not a scenario in my mind, right, where Rahm can enter Eastlake outside of the top 5 at this point, right?
Well, they quadruple the points in the playoffs. So I guess anything is possible, but he is, well, maybe not, because he's got a 1,400 point lead on Wyndham Clark. Wins are worth 2,000. Seconds, I think, are worth 1,200.
He gets all 4 rounds the next 2 weeks. Like, Rahm's not finishing 60th in a 70-man field.
I agree that it would be very hard. One, is it possible? Maybe. Is it probable? Absolutely not. That he's not going to be in the top 5 going into Eastlake.
I like that order that you have, because I like Burns more than Hovland on Bermuda, and I like Hovland a lot more than Burns on Bent.
Hovland lives this course and has never played well at it, which is like,
I think okay. So yeah, I mean, I think Hovland's going to be great at Olympia Fields too. And I think Burns might find him into a little bit more difficulties at Olympia Field. So I like that order.
First in a big one and done, Cam Young, Sungjae, Harman, Keegan are my 4 best left with 2 weeks to go. So 2 of those, one for this week, one for next week. Cam Young, Sungjae, Harman, Keegan.
I love Cam Young this week. Probably a little bit higher on Young this week than you are. But that leaves you with Sungjae, Harman, and Keegan for Olympia Fields. So this is what I'll say. I would either go Cam Young this week, Keegan next week, or Sungjae this week, Cam Young next week.
Run through these real quick.
I'm okay on Harman. He got what he needed.
He's good for a while. If someone gets injured, would JT get in? No, they would run it with 69 golf.
I believe it would be a 69-man field.
It's 100% 69-man field. Most likely top 10 from the bottom half of the field. I said Glover's interesting. Grillo is interesting. Anybody else down there?
Probably Jaeger for me. As we've talked about a bunch, top 10's interesting, because if you said top 20, I'd say Jaeger. but Jaeger is probably more likely to finish like 14th in this tournament than the guys you mentioned. Cam Davis might be more likely than Jaeger to finish 5th, though.
Okay. Let's talk. Well, actually, before we do one and done, let's make one of these tier lineups so we can talk about some more golfers. So the splash contest that we've been running the last couple of weeks, almost halfway full. It filled on like Tuesday last week, so it'll probably fill up pretty quick. This gives us an opportunity to compare some of the tiers. The link's in the description. You can join and get in. Tier 1, wow, is packed, Andy. So let me zoom out a little bit. Scheffler, Rory, Rahm, Cantlay, Victor, Xander, Hatton, Morikawa, Fowler. 200 people in this. Boy. Let's just start with this. Most people will take one of the big 3, right?
Sure. But
sure.
I don't.
Do you want to be different, or do you want to be different? You want to go to Hatton or Morikawa?
Well, maybe have you seen Rory's got a new putter in the bag this week.
What is he using?
He's using it looks like the same model that like Justin Thomas uses, the Phantom.
Oh, great.
It's a Luke Deneen tweet if you want to reference it.
Got it.
Quickly.
Yes. Luke, who I love, by the way, is like one of my favorite. Here it is. Which he says is, he doesn't say what it is. I like him. I do like him using that style of putter.
Sure. I think that of the big 3, and I would put those big 3 still healthily above Cantlay, Hovland, Xander right now. One of them is going to get discarded this week. So I would place a vote for maybe choosing who we think would be the least popular of the big 3 in the 200-man field.
Rahm?
I think Rory will be less popular than Rahm, coming off Rahm's 2nd. But
you don't have to twist my arm. I mean,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's, because there's no pricing here, right? Like everyone is of the same value. All right. If Rory's going to be the man left behind, that's fine. Tier 2, Homa, Harmon, Clark, Spieth, Keegan, Finau, Day, Fleetwood, Decky. Oof.
I'd make an argument for Fleetwood.
Okay. I think the short list is Homa, Clark, Fleetwood.
Okay, I prefer Fleetwood of that group.
Let's do it.
And I think that he might be one of the more popular options, but I think that we've got some opportunities to separate ourselves further.
Fitzpatrick, Cam Young, Tom Kim, Sam Burns, Sung J M, Corey Connors, Denny McCarthy, Justin Rose, Russell Henley. I obviously think it's Burns. He will be the most popular. Tom Kim is pretty risky in this format because for unfinished rounds, you get like an outrageous scoring bump. And in a no-cut event, you'd be absolutely devastated if one of your guys didn't finish 4 rounds.
Would you rather go Burns here and try and get a little different with our last 3 spots, or take somebody less popular?
No, let's do Burns here, but we're gonna have to get a little creative here. Straka, Grillo, Siwoo, Chris Kirk, JT Poston, Putnam, Eric Cole, Benyon, Aaron Rye, Steven Yeager.
Who do you think is least popular out of Straka, Grillo, Yeager, and Siwoo? Because I like all 4 of them a lot.
Straka.
Least popular, huh? You think Straka's least popular than Grillo coming off a playoff loss here last year?
Maybe I'm blind. I mean, Grillo's he's like the 4th best putter in the field this year. Or like, it's just, I don't know. Like he just won like 5 starts ago. I'm in on the dude.
Maybe so do you want to go Grillo or Straka?
Well, if you think that Grillo will be lesser owned than those other guys, I'm happy.
I think it'll be pretty even. I think we can go whoever we want. I don't think anyone will be definitively stronger than the other.
Sahith, Shank, Moore, Hodges, Hadwin, Todd, Rogers, Spawn, Hubbard, Hostler. Yikes. You flip a 9-way coin?
I like Spawn.
Fine.
Okay.
I do not care about any of those guys. Kitayama, Harris English, Nick Taylor, Seamus Power, Cam Davis, Keith Mitchell, Alex Smalley, Thomas Dietrich, Ben Griffin, Sam Stevens.
Do you have any strong opinions on Mitchell versus Davis? Because those would be my two favorites.
No, I think those are the two best options. And
let's go Mitchell for ownership. Mitchell will be lower owned than Davis.
All right, we're in. Rory, Fleetwood, Burns, Grillo, Spawn, Mitchell for us. Yeah, you can get involved. There's a link in the description. Sign up, try to win. It's a little bit of a top-heavy payout for this week. I think it's $10 for this week. One and done. We've already talked a little bit about this. We are at the point of the year where you kind of need to plan out this week, next week, and if your one and done goes to the Tour Championship. So believe it or not, according to Office Football Pool, Brian Harman, 13% will be the most owned. I don't know if that's just because nobody has anyone left, but you are now, I mean, you got to plan out 2 weeks here or 3.
The ROM 8% thing makes zero sense to me because, first of all, I'm surprised that many people have ROM left. Second of all, if you do have ROM left, why are you not using him at Olympia Fields where he won? Or, you know, he's guaranteed to start in the top 5 at Eastlake if your one and done goes that far as well. It's play whoever you got at this point.
It's honestly not that interesting anymore. It's just play whoever you have left.
No, it's not. For our purposes, it's slim pickings for me. It took me a while to. What's up at stake this week? $3 million.
$3.6 million, correct.
And I had Rye who missed the cut last week.
Yeah, I had Russell Henley who
almost
got me the full share, but 676,000.
Yeah, nice little. You padded your tally a little bit.
Yeah, I actually need to look at this because I'm not even sure who I have.
It took me a while to find a guy that I felt okay about, and it's still a bit of a dart throw for me.
Do I have him left? Okay. Well, I will not steal this guy from you because you've already used him. Tommy Fleetwood for me.
Wow, that's an excellent pick considering the options.
Thank you.
I'm going Corey Connors, who we didn't speak about this week much. I really like this spot for him, and I have a pretty good feeling about him. So I'm going to throw a dart with Corey Connors this week and hope I can earn, I need a win. So we shall see.
Fleetwood versus Connors. Let me just make sure. I have not used Fleetwood. I've used Jason Day. Wow. Okay. All right. I'm fine with that. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Do you want to get some of these rapid fire questions real quick?
Oh boy, where did I leave off last time? Quickly on most important metrics. The model says approach and putting. What does Andy say?
I mean, approach is the most important metric every week, I would say, but more so this week than others. So yeah, in a total vacuum, I would say that iron play, specifically short to middle iron play, from 125 to 200 this week.
Homa is trending, and John Hernandez thinks that the whole world has forgotten about him. I tend to agree. The only problem with Homa, Andy, is he's been like poopy here. Very bad.
Terrible at this golf course. Total, what have you done for me lately league with the depth in the golf world right now. So yeah, if you want to throw a bet on Homa at 45 to 1, I think there are worse ways to spend $20, but he's not going to be in consideration for me.
Are the two most likely WDs in order Tom Kim, Hideki Matsuyama?
Based on history, yeah, but I think Hideki's perfectly healthy. So I don't worry about Hideki withdrawing this week now.
So do I. Is this week or next week a better fit for Homa / Spieth? Ben has both left in a one and done and doesn't really know how to run them out there.
I think you're on the right track using Homa and Spieth in these 2 weeks, even though I don't I do really like Spieth this week, but I think that those two are still better options than Keegan, Straka, and Connors. I would go Spieth this week and Homa next, personally.
I had somebody email me like, I have 2 weeks left and I have Cantlay, Xander, Hovland. And I'm like, you have screwed up. Like you have
Big time.
made a mistake having those 3 left with 2 weeks to go. So
Yeah.
good luck.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Andy's articles are up on RickRunGood.com with more on the way. You can follow him on Twitter at ADPLackSports. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been your betting preview for this week's FedEx St. Jude Championship. Good luck.